Presence of the jury panel, Ms. Smith and counsel. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a good lunch. We left off with the audio presentation. Are we going to get right back into that right now?
Yes, sure.
All right, you may proceed.
No, to get signed. Absolutely not. And I asked her, I said, what do you want me to say to him? And I said, I can't say that to him. Then I'm not coming back. And she was all upset. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So there's some things that I don't understand here, Elizabeth. I'm sorry, Tammy, from this side. Mm-hmm. Okay. Certainly, she throws you under the bus, which I shared that with you. Okay, she listed you. There's some parts which I am a little confused that you've done all this media. You've been all here when someone
just trying to. Well, for one, okay, go ahead.
My question was, okay, if someone is going to, let's say if someone blames me for a crime, okay, I want no part of that person, okay? Because if you're going to throw me under the bus, no, you're not going to have any part of me. I'm not going to help you with anything. Certainly, you've got law enforcement, whether you believe in us or not.
Well, all you said was that she said that I told her to do this or something.
Well, that's a huge deal.
And well, I didn't believe you. And because I didn't, and I thought, well, why would she say that? That's not true. I guess. Oh, my ear just popped. I guess
but she is a stranger that you don't know, and she certainly has. She has the ability to throw you under the bus.
You guys obviously have the recording of me being at the jail with her, saying no, and also the recording with News Channel 5. You know,
I hear what you're saying, but a lot of I'll take that with a grain of salt. So I hear what you're saying. I don't have a recording right now. Can I get a recording of something? Yes, I can. But this is much more complex than that. You've got someone who's in the jail. Mm-hmm. You led a lot of that. Yes, no questions. I'm not even going to attack that, really. I have my head in other things that, for example, if I could listen for an hour and a half to that, or I could do homework and get what is concrete for me. I mean, I understand you did an interview.
So what are you saying that I did now?
No, I'm not saying that you. I'm asking you, did you participate at all in helping her stay away for initially? Initially.
No, I didn't help her stay away. I was just doing research with her, like over the phone with her, helping her to see if she could change jurisdictions.
Now, why were you doing that? Is that because Logan was standing there?
No, because she said she was just going to run, and she was going to change their social security cards and all that stuff. I said, you could possibly do this a legal way.
Okay.
You know?
Doesn't that make you nervous? If someone seriously was looking at illegal things? I didn't know anything. I didn't have any paperwork. I didn't. All I'm hearing is from what she's saying, and I'm feeling sorry for this poor girl all by herself. And this guy has his dad and everyone to, you know. Okay. And I'm like, okay, they're on top of you. She said the father even came and kidnapped the baby from the daycare, you know, and kept him for a week and decided they didn't want him anymore, and then they dropped him back off, and you know, and all this stuff. And it's like, you know, we're hearing all this stuff, and here I am just trying to give her moral support. I gave moral support. Did I try to find a hotel for her? No. Did I try to find some legal things for her to see what was legal and what was not legal? Yes, because I didn't want her getting in herself in deeper trouble because I know the legalities of you can't just run and change your identities. First of all, that doesn't work. And secondly, you have a baby to take care of. You can't, that baby's going to wind up, you know, hurt because you're running. If you want to do that, let's do it the right way. Okay.
You know?
Okay. Let me take a break real quick just to check on something.
I need to go to the bathroom.
Oh, you need to go to the bathroom? Okay. Hang on. I'm going to have someone direct you then. Okay.
Your Honor, at this time, we're going to fast forward between 1:10 to 1:18 hours during this break.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Here
where we're at, okay? And here's where I believe that you can help yourself. You can help Gabriel. Okay, I think there's two focuses here. Certainly there's Gabriel and there's yourself. I mean, you have to take care of yourself. And what started all this was looking for Gabriel and so forth. Okay. This is certainly, this whole issue with Craig is not good for you. Okay, you know that, I know that. You've certainly reached out to the media, which you have the right to do. I'm not knocking you on that. But certainly, and we make mistakes, this would look horrible. I mean, it would look horrible, okay? I don't wish horrible things for you, Tammi, okay? That's why I, in a busy schedule, asked to do this interview with you, okay? Here's the deal, though, with that, is I want you to come out of this, okay, the best that you can. And I would like your assistance with Gabriel, which you've given it. I'm not knocking that, okay? We are all human, and anyone in the media, I think they could have picked anything from you and started to slam you, started to attack you. Questions even off of, let's use a news station will attack you, okay? Those aren't always nice things. This would certainly be extremely negative. Here's what I want you to do for yourself. I would like you, in many ways, we have reached out to people to be that hero, to help us with Gabriel. You may not know where he's at. I don't know that part of it, okay? But I would like you to have a positive role in here, and you certainly, the door has been open to the media, and sometimes it's not so much a positive, because everything gets twisted. Guess what? I watch things. I today, as a person, do not even really watch the news because everything gets twisted and you know, I know what's going on with an investigation, then I watch the news and I'm amazed. Okay, so it's just better that I stay out of it and I do my job.
Right.
Okay. I do want you to recover from this. I want you to help yourself, and I want you to look good in terms of yourself and for Gabriel. Something that I picked up on our Tuesday interview, when I first interviewed you, I picked up on it on our Thursday interview. I've done this long enough, and I'm pretty good at what I do, in the sense that I do believe that come when she took off, you know, she goes to Texas. And I'm not saying that you set something up, but is there participation there? I would absolutely say yes. You know, the minute you start looking into a jurisdiction, there's participation there, okay?
But the minute we found out you could not do that because she already had, you know, I mean,
I hear you on that.
If you look at my background and my mother, and you know what I mean, and it's like, and everything that my mom did with us and our, you know, and it's like, I mean, I did. The second we found out you can't do that, it was get back here, you, and you know, you got to go to court and all this stuff. You know, we did everything we could to try to get her back.
Okay, so then here is what I'm saying. So she just picks Texas out of nowhere.
I don't know, and that's why I told you about the garment. That makes me believe she knew where she was going. You know, and I asked her that yesterday. I said, why did you get a Garmin? You didn't have one before. Well, you need one when you're on the road. And I said, no, not unless if you know where you're going. You know?
Here, and this will be my final, and I will take your answer as you give them, but this will be my final on this. I play a huge role, okay? I'm case agent on it. I submit things to the county attorney's office. Everything it is what it is. Certainly input comes. But it's basically going for the underdog, and yet I could be a cop that doesn't even care. I mean, in reality, Tammi, you've been all over the news. Okay, I can't say that it's always a positive thing for this investigation or what you've said and so forth. Okay, but I still see you as, you know what? I think you got manipulated here. Okay, I think that here was a girl that you felt sorry for, and she presented a picture. You have a good Christian foundation, and you have good beliefs there, and you meant well, but it went sour. But yet in there, you play a role in it, okay? I mean, we all play a role whenever we start getting active. When we start doing things, we play a role in it.
We like to help people.
Absolutely.
And that is our heart, and we just want to help people. And I swear to God, and he knows that I'm telling the truth, that I begged her to come back here.
Okay, but here, and that I believe you, and here is where I need you, I'm telling you, girl, to help yourself out here. I do believe you begged her to come back here, okay? But where I'm stuck with you and in my homework, without giving you everything, it's the start of Texas, and it's that first week. It's that first week.
But I swear to God, I didn't get her out there. And if you guys listen to her voicemails, I mean, we were calling her. I was very upset. Like, we thought many of things. We thought maybe her and Logan got back together. We thought Logan kidnapped the baby like he said he would.
But you talked to her early on that week. You were busy talking.
You mean before she left?
Before she left. Here's my focus. It's not the 26th where we don't know where Gabriel is.
Right.
I'm not dealing with that week. You know what I'm dealing with? I'm dealing with she takes off on the 18th. She hits the road. Okay, she's gone.
I know it looks that way, and that is why we're trying to find him. I mean, that's not the only reason. We want to find him so he can go back to his dad and be in a happy home, not on the run. You know what I mean? Because whoever has him obviously is either on the run or they're trying to hide or something. And once you do find those people, you will know that we had absolutely nothing. There is no connection to us to those people because there wasn't anything. You know what I mean? But have you guys looked at the Scottsdale Library yet? Have you gone through the computers there?
Here's what I do. And I said this to you on Tuesday. Here's what I do, because it's a part of, when we're all set and we work this thing out, is I do my homework. And I give people a speech that they can rely on, because I don't come back on my word, okay? You've not tripped me up on that, and I'm very proud of that as a detective, okay? I spoke to you Tuesday, I spoke to you Thursday, here we are today, okay? I am very straightforward, and I'm not here to trick you. But what I rely on people is be responsible and come clean, and just keep it as simple as it can be. Because here's what happens sometimes, and I never understand this, is we get on this path. The truth doesn't come out. It does actually come out due to evidence and all homework, and then it's sour for a person. When now we've got this big crap here, when all it was this little deal. That's it. And that's what I said to you even with Elizabeth. She can make something, and her issue is this big, okay? And I said over and over, oh my gosh, this is like as simple as it can come, but we have to take responsibility. And here's what I tell people, you make me do the homework and you don't give me the honest truth, but you have me show it to you in evidence, sort of like this. I was testing you in a sense that I said, Kent, what's your role with Craig? Because don't make me do this to you and then you come clean, and then, because guess what? It's very negative for you at that point. So I'd rather a person say, guess what? I screwed up. I was caught up in emotion.
I honestly at that point thought that I was helping her not to get herself in, because I thought she showed me his record. I thought this guy would come back and possibly kill her, or this guy. I mean, the way she described this to me, I just wanted to help her.
Okay, but let's go back. Let's go back to Texas, because I've got this. I knew even without you telling me. I mean, there's a reason why I had you do a handwritten analysis. Okay, there's a reason why something is being tested as we're speaking. Okay, and again, it's not a trick. I'm going to do my homework. I get frustrated when I do my homework. I give a person the benefit and the time to, hey, just come clean, and this way we can work this out as best as we can for you, okay? We don't need
anything other than that has never been written. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that's ever been written.
I'm just giving you an example of even how we double check and triple check and so forth, okay? This is a very good department. We are very good detectives. I'm very proud of us. We do our homework. With that, where I go to bat for people is I go to bat because when people come clean, hey, I would want someone to bat for me if I come clean with something. You're a human being just like I'm a human being. I make mistakes, you make mistakes. It's all about recovery at this point. It's how do I get myself out of this? Because guess what? if we were, this is horrible for you. This, for everything that you presented to the media, I'll tell you what, you get eaten alive. Okay, everything that I have heard you, I've glanced over, I have not had too much time to glance at new stuff, but I know that it's like all over the place. I can almost go anywhere and say this child's name, and everybody knows, you got Nancy Grace, you got all these things, all this media. And people wanted to attack you. Some people, you'll almost get 50-50. This is like, oh my God. Something is wrong.
It's been out there.
Well, no, not necessarily that you did this. Okay, I'm saying this will eat you alive, and I want you to recover from it. But the only way is to come clean.
Okay, but I did not help her get away.
So you didn't.
I didn't.
You have no connection in Texas. So you have no friends.
Now I hear IACT is in Texas, but that's IACT. I don't IACT, the International Association for Colon Therapy.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not like friends with them that I talk to them. You know what I mean? I probably talk to them a couple times a year.
Okay.
And these are people that I barely know. It's like if you have a corporate headquarters in Atlanta.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That's your corporate headquarters. I mean, you guys can see that we don't like talk to each other, and you can look through the emails. The emails are saying, I've sent this information to you over and over, and nobody will give me the correct information, like for the lesson plan, and all the emails you'll see, it's like all about the lesson plan and about my 50 questions and about, and it's all to do with colon therapy. There is absolutely nothing that links me.
So there's no connection that's going to come back, no friends, no relatives.
I mean, if there's anyone on my Facebook, I've got almost 2,000 friends. If there's anyone on my Facebook that is connected there, you'll see in there that we don't talk all the time. It's not somebody,
So then who? Because when I spoke to you last week, you had no one in Texas as a friend, but Jack did. He did mention.
Right. Now there's people on Facebook, but I don't know these people. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't know if they're in Texas. I know recently, in the past week or two, I've probably got 300 or 400 new friends all of a sudden on there, and a lot of them are coming from Texas. So if it's not those people, and you can look at every message on there. But there, and like we told you before, on Facebook or MySpace, there's no way that she picked somebody out of there, because if they even live in Texas, I have no clue they live in Texas,
So she leaves to Texas. You're looking up jurisdiction. Would you have helped her if you had found something on the internet that says, just like you said, if she goes to Tennessee and she could start, let's say she could start this court proceeding all over again? Would you then have assisted her with that?
I probably would have if I knew that the law is good with that. But looking back now today, no, I wouldn't, because I didn't understand what was going on. I thought she was basically battered women syndrome,
Okay, so she leaves Saturday, Sunday. You guys talk roughly, going by memory of what you said, like a Monday or Tuesday, I think, at the beginning of that week. And then you talk every day, just about. Well, you just said you talk all the time.
Right.
And in that, were you giving her any updates? If you had heard from Logan? I mean, obviously you communicated with Logan on the 22nd.
Yeah, it was whatever. I mean, anytime I talk to Logan or anytime I talk to her, whatever they told me to tell each other or whatever,
So I'm not going to, and it's amazing how people turn on people in investigations, okay? And I'm not going to release many things because it is an open investigation. You are a point of interest, and so I'd be a fool to give you a whole bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to, and here's my question to you. There's no possibility, and I'm throwing it out this way, that someone is going to come forward as a witness, as to conversation, as to, because I'd rather it come from you than from witnesses.
Why would you want her to leave, though?
And well, there is a point to leaving, though. Here's the point to leaving. Okay, just like the paperwork in terms of that paperwork getting signed takes care of Logan. There is actually a reason. There would have been a benefit to her leaving. Let's say she had followed through. Let's say she'd come back. Let's say that did stress out Logan. You would have had a signed document that would have allowed you to go along with an adoption. So there is a reason to this madness.
Wait, what was the signed document for the adoption?
When
we didn't even have any adoption papers.
But on the 22nd, when it came down to, yes, she'll come back which you even presented to me on the false document when we talked about a false document.
Right.
And all I'm saying is there is a reason to her leaving, and in terms of, okay, I'll show Logan will sign this over, and this baby, she certainly wanted the baby to go to you. I mean, she certainly had that. There's no doubt on that.
Right. No, that was never ever talked about beforehand. That was what she called me and told me, and I'm like, I'm not telling him that. Well, then I'm not coming back. And when she first left, when we gave her the baby for Logan for the weekend, we were scared the entire weekend that what's wrong with her? We thought, did she give the baby to Logan and he kidnapped her? Did they get back together? Did she decide that her and her new boyfriend want to have this baby together? What if our first instinct with her was with the murder-suicide? What if she did that? We were afraid that her and the baby could have been in that trailer dead. You know, we went to the house.
What made you think all of that?
We had all those different thoughts.
Set your phone up.
Yeah, we had all of those different thoughts. Everything was running through our head. The very first time she called us and wanted us to adopt and when we first brought him home, we thought, did we just save this baby from like a murder-suicide thing? Maybe this woman was like, couldn't handle it, you know? And then after talking to her a little bit after that, it was like, oh no, she just is ready to, you know, not be a mom.
And see, those are even red flags that I would tell you to take care of yourself a different way if this were to ever come back your way. I mean, obviously you had clues that something may not be right here. I'm just telling you, just to pay attention to your intuition, because obviously you're even telling me about your intuition and some things that you feared. So she leaves Saturday, Sunday. She calls you a few days later. And you look into jurisdiction in terms of changing and so forth. And from that, did you communicate with Logan in terms of signing a court document that would then encourage her? Same thing you proposed to McVeigh. You did propose to Judge McVeigh that if you pretty much could get her back here. You thought that you could get her back here if she would sign, if he would sign, you know, an adoption paperwork. I mean, you proposed that to me that weekend, that you believe that that's what she was looking at.
But I also explained in that did I not explain in that like I was not trying to say do this and she'll come back, and this is. I even told you that maybe he could sign something where it'll go to another adoptive family, whether it be me or whether it be another adoptive family, whatever the case may be, so that she knows that he's not going to get him. You know, I just wanted her to bring this baby back. And in the very end of all of this, I knew that what she had asked me before to tell Logan, that clicked in my mind, ooh, maybe if she thinks he did sign, or maybe if something's saying he's not going to get him, maybe she'll bring him back. Because that's what she told me to tell him the first time, and I thought, maybe we can actually do that. And that's when I talked to you as well about doing phony documents or whatever it takes to get him back here.
Okay. So you have no clue today where Gabriel's at?
No, but I mean, that blog was posted, and then but there's that lady, Natalie, whatever her name was. I'm looking at the picture of them too, and it's the exact description that Elizabeth gives.
Okay. Well, certainly, I'm not going to hound you because here's how I work. I give people the opportunity to help themselves. Mm-hmm. Okay. I let evidence speak for itself. Okay, that part is on certain levels out of my hands. Okay, I allow that. I also like people to recover here. I would say that you would definitely have the hearts of people in terms of if you would be that key to finding him, or if you would even be that key to what was going on with Elizabeth. You know,
we want to find him. I mean, why would we be working so desperately
no, I'm
to find
just
him?
encouraging you. I'm not attacking you on that. I'm just saying that certainly, you know, we are reaching out to who would be that link that would, you know, be loved by the community, because our heart, just like your heart, is for Gabriel. Okay, so of course, whoever that person is will just be well loved. I mean, it's that warm feeling that if you weren't in the spot that you were in, and if it were to be someone else that leads us to this baby, you would be hero. It's a hero. I mean, it's something that we would thank that person for. Okay, but if that's not who, you know, if you don't know where he is at, I mean, I'm certainly not going to hound you if you don't have that information.
I don't, and I wish I did. I wish I did.
Okay. Here is, I don't want you fooled. There is going to be a consequence to, it is what it is when it speaks for itself in terms of evidence, okay? If there's anything else, like I said, if you want to come clean, because I'd rather you come clean on anything else that I find than for me to find it. Because at that point, this is where I'm at. They've given you the opportunity, and then it's just a matter of doing paperwork and being a cop and just doing my job. So that's where I want to open this up to, is there anything else that you feel that, you know what, and looking back, yeah, that's going to make me look not so good, and so I need to let you know about it so that it doesn't come at me a different way. I'd much rather give you that opportunity right here, right now. So with that, I want you to sit with that thought, because I think that that's important. I want you to go through your 3 weeks with her, whatever you've dealt with her, and honestly do that which I gave you the example. If the news were to get a hold of this, or if the community, if a meeting were to get a hold of this, or the newspaper were to see this, it's going to make me look crappy. It's going to make me look, you know, definitely it's something that's questionable. With that, I'd rather you bring it out here and let's get that dealt with than to do it a different way. I think that's very fair, and that's an opportunity that maybe not all of us would you know, I mean, that's me caring for you and not wanting to see. I wish you only the best. Okay, I don't wish for something evil to come your way, or bad, or so forth. So I want you to sit with that, with what you've got going here, because I don't want to present it to you a different way. Okay, is that fair enough? That I'd like you to have some minutes thinking about it?
The only people I can think of is my, you know, IACT, and she doesn't even know anything about IACT.
But think about,
and then Hannah's birth father, I think, is from Texas.
Okay, but I'm saying think about maybe any role you played, any court document, any phone call, any text, any friend that you reached out to help her, anything that I'm telling you, if that in your head feels...
Well, I mean, we did tell you about my, when you were there before, because you're saying any friend that could have helped her. We did tell you about my stepson's condo in Tennessee
I understand.
Before we knew about the jurisdiction and all that stuff.
But what I'm saying is I want to give you a few minutes, because after this opportunity here, I think, you know, I don't know so much where we are and so forth, because I am the type that I'm doing this on purpose. I'm wanting you to take care of yourself. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. So I'm going to give you a few minutes I mean, I would want someone to give me a few minutes so that we get this down, we deal with it here, then deal with it this way, okay? I don't want to have to do this again, because at that point, you know, I mean, we're human, we get tired. I would want to give you some understanding right here, right now. That's where my heart is for you, is to give you some understanding. Ultimate goal is whatever proves that I'll find Gabriel. That's my ultimate goal here. So just sit with that, if that's fair, okay? Just sit with that, and then we will look at...
Can I call my husband and ask him if he can think of anything?
If you feel the need to use a phone... was also in this. Gabriel comes first. I do want to help you, but that's going to come first, and that's my delay. I've been in meeting after meeting and so forth, okay? You leave me a message if you feel that there's something. We'll handle it that way, okay? Here, I feel for you on this level, so I want to double check some things. Even when I get a witness that comes in, I want to double check that and so forth. And it is important that I just don't go by people's word and so forth, okay? The person that you were joking and you asked when you guys were drinking wine and so forth, and the Craig, your cousin, came up and so forth. And I've had several phone calls, so I don't just have, I have several issues. Sadly, people come out of the woodwork and want to propose a whole bunch of things and so forth. I want to verify. I'm going to use your honesty and so forth. Who were you talking to that night? That your friend that you joked about using her husband?
That was Deanne.
Deanne who?
Deanne Ayla.
Is that her first name?
Deeann.
Deee. A-N-N.
Deanne.
Deanne. What's her last name?
Ayla. I think it's I-A-L-A or something like that.
I-A-L-A? Okay. Do you have her phone number? Do you know her?
I've got Jack's phone number. I mean, I've got Jack's phone. He has my phone right now. It's in...
Okay. Do you know her address? You work with her?
No.
Okay.
No, I've got her in my phone.
In your phone? Okay. If you think about it, because I would, I've got somebody else assisting, and I just want to double check something. If you want to leave me her number, feel free to do that. There's some other people and issues that basically where I'm at when it comes down to you and person of interest, so that you understand this, okay? And so that you also understand my investigation with you is going to be slower because I've got like a double here. I've got a missing child, okay, and then I've got you on the side. And I've got other people. If there's anyone else that has assisted in here, guess what? Then I have to look into that also. So my role with you is a slower role. So when it comes down to, like when you said, well, for people of interest, get me in here sooner. But the deal is I need to do my homework before I do that, okay? So it in something like this comes slower when it comes down to you, okay? It's not something that I can wrap up in 2 days. It's tremendous in terms of paperwork and so forth. Plus, I still have things that are coming in that I'm double checking when it comes down to you. I'm going to tell you honestly. That's why I said I'd much rather you tell me it than for me to figure it out.
I mean, if I had my phone here, I could go through every single person and think, did I have a conversation with this person? Did I have a conversation with this person? Honestly, though, right now, there is nothing. I mean, maybe me and Deanne talked about, helping her change jurisdictions, whatever you call that. But that's before we found out that you could not change, because I know that she's gone through stuff, and I remember I probably talking to her about it.
Okay.
I'm not positive, but... but I would have never done anything. Like, once we found out you cannot change jurisdictions, we completely changed. We did not help her get away. We didn't push her to go away. Once she was away, once we did find her, she started telling us that Logan was threatening her and stuff like that. And so, I'm going to just run. I'm going to run. And so at that point, that's when we were like, oh, okay. And I'm like, you can't run that way. Okay. And I said, so I'll help you by researching and find out what your legalities, what your, because at that point, she, and we were at court, but we didn't go in the courtroom. And him and his dad walked past all angry and mean. And I was standing there the day before with her on the phone with him saying that we're all going to meet up, we're going to have lunch, we're going to talk about the whole adoption thing. And I could hear him on the phone, and he sounded like everything was cool with that, and that we were going to bring the baby, and and he can spend time with the baby. We had pictures of Santa. That was the day we brought pictures of Santa. and with the baby. And when he walked past and didn't even want to see the baby or anything, I truly believed she said she just won sole custody of the child. And they have to go back to court in March, you know? And then when she called me, Friday morning, because I brought her the baby Friday morning. When she called me Friday morning saying, Logan is saying that they said that he gets visitation, you know? At that point, you know, that is when I'm like, well, that seems odd. I thought you just got custody until March. So
this last part that I just thought of this for you to help you. When you called Judge McVeigh, from your memory, and I'd much rather it come, I don't want things to blow up on you. Did you call McVeigh on your own? I'm just going to flat out ask you versus
what do you mean?
You threw it out on Yami, that you called, you proposed what you said on the voicemail because Yami told you to do that. So here's one little thing that I'd much rather it be clean for you because it's gonna domino affect someone else and especially media someone else. Did you do that on your own? That's a simple.
Or did she tell me that I should try to do that?
Or did she? Because when I asked you that, you pretty much put the responsibility on her and you followed
well,
that.
I'm not. It's not that I'm trying to put any responsibility on her. I didn't know that there was anything wrong with it, and I don't think she did either. I think we were just bouncing back and forth with scenarios, and still here we are. And we've obviously changed our mindset with that because obviously Logan wants his child, and obviously he has a dad, and you know what I mean. It was nothing like the picture that was painted.
And just because
she told me that I should call CPS, and she might have said, not positive, CPS or the judge or something, or call CPS and see if the judge will let you guys, you know, and all that stuff. So
you
so
do
definitely.
feel that she encouraged you to do
Definitely,
that.
because I didn't even ask about that.
Okay.
She was saying that I should do that.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm
Just
sorry.
because she thought that, you know, as we were brainstorming about this, and she's like, I don't understand about his record and blah, blah, blah. And she's talking about the record, and the police here didn't even have his record. And I printed it up and had to give it to them. I need some water.
Sure.
And so she's, you know, she's talking about that, and this baby doesn't need to go to neither of them, you know, and she was just all fired up about it, and she didn't mean anything by it, just like I didn't mean anything up. We're just fired up about it, like, oh my gosh, maybe she'll, you know, I mean, it's just trying to get this baby back here.
Okay. So here's how I'm going to close with you.
And I've even told Channel 5 or 3, Channel 3. I said I'd like to sit down with Logan and, you know, do some kind of a public apology. You can ask her. I think it's Christy or whatever from Channel 3. A public apology. I did not mean to harm him in any way. And I did not, I mean, obviously Logan knows she can manipulate things. And I didn't know that. I'm a person that somebody comes to me and they give me their sad scenario, and I'm going to try to fix it all for them and help them. But I can promise you, I did not fix it to where she could leave. That would do nothing for us. You know, I mean, even if she had custody, at least we knew that she liked us enough to let us babysit for her. Okay. You know, and that was going to be the goal. At least we can be babysitters for you, you know.
If anything stirs up for you, anything that you want to discuss with me directly in reference to you, okay, as a person of interest, obviously I know that you would contact whoever you feel necessary for Gabriel. I'll leave that here. We have two investigations here, really. Then feel free to contact me. You may end up getting my voicemail, and I will call you back, okay? And so I'll keep that open. I'm not done with the investigation. Certainly. I wish you the best of luck in terms of however this falls, okay? But if you feel that there's anything that you want to share with me, feel free to go ahead and call me. I know you were initially upset with, 2 days. I mean, I've worked, it has been upside down, certainly under these special circumstances. So I may not be at my desk. I mean, look at how much I've been away from my desk today, okay? So I'm going to leave it open like that. And then if you have any questions, just feel free to call me, okay? And we'll go ahead and conclude here. And then I'm going to walk you, or they're going to walk you out, okay? And do you have any questions for me? Okay, and I think they're going to stir up for you. So if you have any questions, just feel free to call me. Okay, I've been here pretty late each night.
Is there any better number to call?
No, call me. I was out of town till Saturday, and then Sunday I was out of town, and you called me Monday. And then I think we were playing phone tag. So that's not normal. I've been calling you right back prior to that, but it got a little hectic there. So just, I like to explain that I'm not trying to be rude, but certainly got hectic. And then that's when I called you back a couple times yesterday, and then first thing this morning before I hit a meeting this morning. Okay, out of all fairness. I mean, I'm just, it's just a little.
I guess I do have a question about the thing that Yanni, if, when you talk to Yanni and she tells you, well, I told her to do that because I thought that since she had the guardianship papers and since looking at his, history, looking at the whole situation, maybe that would be the best thing or whatever. So that being said, are you guys going to understand that situation? I mean,
I have to, it's a little complex. We're dealing with, it's complex. I will tell you, when I come down, here's how I work. When I come down to the bottom of my investigation, I'm near closure, okay? I will communicate with you. I will let you know what charges are going to be filed. I like people to have a heads up. I don't believe it's fair to keep people on pins and needles. Where I go out of my way, when someone works with me, when I have a suspect that's working with me, then I want to go that extra route and work with that person, okay? Because we make mistakes. I'm not here to judge that part of it, but there's a consequence. There's a consequence. So when it comes down to that, I'm going to communicate with you. I'm going to let you know, okay, here are the charges that will be filed, and that goes through the Maricopa County, okay? And out of all fairness,
what charges will be filed?
I'm not done with my investigation, so it would be crazy for me to jump the gun and tell you, here's what's going to be submitted. I will do that at the end. I will let you know that here's what's going to be submitted to the county attorney's office, okay? And I'll do that. I do that with everybody. I like people to have a heads up because you're a little different circumstance that you have a nice solid house that I don't think you're going to move from, but sometimes I've got some people that are from house to house and I want them to receive their mail and I don't want a warrant to be issued out and I want I want people to follow through. I would wish that here's my goal, you learn from this and you move on. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to treat you just like I treat everybody else. I'm going to communicate with you. I will let you know what those charges are, but I'm not done with my investigation. So I can't honestly give you that right now. But when I am at that point, I'm going to tell you, Tammy, here's what's going on. Here's what you need to be, and anything that I would tell anyone is, hey, just follow through with things, be responsible, don't dodge things, and I wish you the best on that. We're not there yet. I've got an open investigation, okay? But out of all fairness, that's how I'm going to communicate with you, is let you know exactly what is coming your way, okay?
So let's just say, hypothetically, today or tomorrow or next week, you guys find Gabriel. And you find this couple and they have never known me, don't know anything about me.
Okay.
So what is that? How does that play out?
That will assist you in terms of any type of kidnapping. That will assist in a possible homicide. Those are the big things that I'll tell you what, if you let us or if you're not a part of it, it looks good for you. Bottom line, that looks good for you. You really can answer that for yourself. That looks good for you. Now, does that have an effect on this? This is a separate investigation. I have known that I've had 2 investigations, but
so what is this investigation then?
Well, I am dealing with
because you said it's a separate.
Well, meaning that I have a missing child,
right.
And then I have an open criminal investigation in terms of you, in terms of any custodial interference, in terms of the court document, in terms of it's a little more complex because I'm not even done. I've got things still looking in to you, but I'm balancing out that I've got Gabriel missing, and you know what? I'm going to bring you in, and we're going to start with some of this, and we're going to go from there. You can decline. You could have said, no, I'm not willing to talk to you.
I don't want to decline anything.
And then I go with based on evidence alone. And I'd much rather hear from a person's heart, because guess what? Everything that you say here, I have to type up, and that goes further, okay? And I'd rather you answer to something.
Well, will you just please take, because you said that whenever we're on the phone, you record that. So just please,
when I'm talking to you,
make sure
I
that
always
you
record.
make sure you go through those recordings of me telling you, I never, ever, when I talked to Logan, I said, he wanted to know what she said. I kind of chuckled about it. I don't want to say what she said. And then, no, what did she say? I told him what she said. I said, this is coming straight out of Elizabeth's mouth, not mine. This is Elizabeth. My husband was standing right there when I said that, and when she said that, and we found it very odd that she was saying these things. And from the whole time, it was, you can't sign under duress anyway, so it wouldn't matter. But did we talk the day before that, before we found Elizabeth, or whenever did we talk about it, about the fact, because I said, well, we've never got a chance to talk. I mean, what are your feelings on this adoption? She said, you're off and on this adoption thing. And he said, well, me and my dad has talked about it, and we're really thinking about it, and maybe we can, meet up together and we can talk about it. Well, obviously he, was just saying those things. So I can see where he would see that because he's obviously upset, but see, at the time, I didn't think he cared about his kid, not from what I was told, and not from everything she had shown me, and I'm sitting here thinking this guy's just mad at her and wants her in jail, and so I didn't take it as a light. It wasn't, I've never been around somebody I don't know anyone who kidnaps a baby or kills a baby, so I didn't think of it as any big deal, like, oh, she'll come back in a couple days, and I didn't look at it that way when I was talking to him. I wasn't trying to get him to sign papers for real, and if, I guess, looking at it back at it now, not knowing that he wasn't upset, maybe he took it that way because he was so upset. But I promise you, it was not done that way. Elizabeth told me to tell him. I chuckled, and I qualified it as, these are her words, not mine. And if we all got to sit together, then he possibly would remember me saying that to him. But the fact that he was upset, and I didn't know at that time he was upset, because all I knew of this guy was he doesn't want nothing to do with that baby. He just wants me, and he, and so I'm thinking that his mindset isn't really caring anyway. So, if I would have thought that this is a father that loves his child and wants his child back, I would have never even mentioned anything. I would have said, no, she's saying stupid stuff. And I just wouldn't have even told him. Okay. But from what he had told me before, me and my dad's talking about this and all this stuff, I thought, oh, maybe she's right. He doesn't want the baby, and so I didn't think of it as such a sensitive thing to say. Because it wasn't a missing. I thought, okay, she told me she won full custody while we were there, in the court, and he passed by. Every piece of evidence that I had, honestly, just like you're saying, it looks like I might have helped her go somewhere. But every piece of evidence that she gave me was showing me that this was some low-down, dirty dog guy that was doing nothing but hurting that baby and her.
Yet he followed through. The flip side of that is you really don't have him dodging any court proceedings. He's followed through. A person who takes the effort to follow through usually means because they care. There's a reason for it.
Right, but there hadn't been a bunch of court proceedings by then. That was the one on Thursday.
Because now we have a possible adoption, and maybe, if this, let's just say he's not going to be adopted anywhere, there's no reason then to start to argue that point, because you have a girlfriend, you have a baby in common, people do that, and you move on. But everything changes when someone wants to take your rights away. And I asked you directly, how are you going to deal with Logan? Because Logan's the pain in the butt here, and he's saying no. And even from the side of using an attorney and so forth, and back pay and current pay and visitation.
Right.
What I'm saying is he has stood his ground. And yet you've known this girl for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Think about it. You wouldn't marry, I would think you would, if you started to date someone in 3 weeks, you wouldn't even.
But that's what my attorney told me. Well,
I'm just going over that, he's followed through on things. And I'm not going to attack anyone's criminal history. I'm not going to attack someone from the past. We all make mistakes. That's a part of growing up and learning from life experience.
Right.
I'm not about to do that to someone. The flip side, the concern here is to what degree did you overstep? That it does come down to a simple level of to what degree did you overstep. And maybe your emotions got the best of you. I sometimes go back to that you are human, you cared about this baby, maybe your emotions got the best of you. Okay, and I'm not going to fault you for that, but you still have to take responsibility to okay, so I got too emotional here, and here's where I messed up, and okay, how do we clean through this? And that's what I would hope for you, okay? But along with that is I need your participation of being straight up with me and being honest. And so that's why I said, if something stirs up in you, then you give me a call, and I'd much rather have it come from you than have it come from all my homework and my evidence to support that. I think it looks better on paper. I think it
And you're right. You're right. I'm hoping that there's something that I might have said to somebody that I can remember. About anything.
So I'm going to leave that door open and say, hey, if you need to give me a call and we need to go over some stuff, then I'm going to leave that opportunity.
You guys, open. I'm willing to let you guys hypnotize me even and take whatever info you can get out of me. Honestly, the thing about Craig was honestly not in my brain, not until he called me just the other day.
Okay. Well, I think this will help stir some things, and what I'm giving you the opportunity is I'm looking at that this weekend, if I get a message from you, if something stirs up in you, I'd rather it come from you. It looks better on paper. When I'm doing an investigation and someone's going to say, hey, I'm going to come clean on this, I'd rather it come this way than for me, manpower, investigating, doing all this. It looks uglier on paper. It looks uglier once we present it that way, okay? It just looks uglier. So I would wish that for something better for you. So if something stirs up, that's what I'm saying. Then you give me a call. We'll handle that as it comes, okay? I'm going to leave that door open as I feel that I should. Maybe another officer would say, no, I'm not going to give her that opportunity. Who cares? She's, done this, and this, or no. What I'm saying is I'm going to leave that opportunity open, okay?
Well, I know. And as far as her going, there's nothing, there is nothing that
So just think of it. All I'm throwing at you is think about it, and if you feel that there's something that you need to go over with me, then go over it with me, okay? I've given you really, you can't knock me from Tuesday to Thursday to today, okay? I have given you some compassion as I feel that I should.
I completely understand. I just don't know what there could possibly be.
If it pops up.
See, just like this thing here with Craig, it's like that was something that I knew my cousin doesn't have that baby. You know what I mean? It's like, why would I even think of that in my brain?
Here's the deal, Tammi. So let me throw this at you. You're really pretty hot and heavy over Craig. You were pretty pissed off when we entered this interview room. You were pretty pissed off over the topic of Craig. You wanted to go over the topic of Craig. Okay. You wanted to handle that. You left me a couple messages. I already had most of my homework done, okay? I was going to deal with this on my time. You know why? Because I've got Gabriel missing, okay? I knew that, we have an issue here. We are going to deal with that issue, but the priority here is Gabriel, okay? When we entered this room, you were real hot, mad, pissed over Craig. Yet I would think, and here's what I'm going to throw this at you. Okay, I would think that, come on, we're all adults. You're not drunk when you go down to the courthouse and you filled out some paperwork. Okay, this is within a month and a half. This is not 6 months ago. This is not a year ago. And here's where I'm going to call you on that. And this is where kind of like let's not go down from all the good work that we've done here, but you're not going to convince me that this came up. Now, maybe it was our recognition, maybe it was our analysis of handwriting and so forth, but come on, this was a month ago. Maybe not even a whole month ago, maybe a month ago to a T. And I believe that you're a responsible adult enough And it's just that at this, maybe on this little level, I had something to throw at you. I have other things. I'm not done. I've got so much. My attention is on Gabriel. I probably have about 20% to go through you. But trust me, when I have that full 100%, that's where I tell you, come clean with me here, because I'm a pretty hard worker, okay? Mm-hmm. But here's where I'm telling you that it disappoints me, because you came real heavy and you know, Craig, and I was like, hey girl, if you need to slow it down, because we will deal with that, but you're not going to convince me that you didn't, it just popped up in your head.
I would wait, meaning that it just popped.
Meaning that you completely forgot about us, about this signature and this topic, you know.
I mean, even right now, looking at it, I didn't even remember really writing it. We were, if you look at the video footage, we're like in a time crunch, and I'm trying to help her, and she's like, "Can you write that, because I forgot what his name was?" And it,
okay,
yeah, but
it didn't just. Here's see, you're going to disappoint me in this level. It came up the night before. You joked on a phone call, okay? And yeah, you had some wine, and okay. But then the next day, you're an adult. You're a responsible adult. Where is there the intent there? You're clear-headed. You're not under alcohol, okay?
Right, but the lady kept saying, you know, you're not going to...
I understand that, but are you not... Can you take responsibility for that?
Yes, I did do that. Yes, I did that. But I just, you know, and looking back, I wouldn't have done it. I felt like I was just trying to help her, trying to help a family.
I hear you.
Not get a DNA test to some man.
I hear you. So here's the deal. If there's anything else before I find it, and there's already issues that are up, but like I said, my number one is here. Well, yeah, I'm not.
I know. I'm not expecting you to tell me. I'm just thinking, I don't know what they could be.
If it stirs up for you, I am going to give you the opportunity by this weekend, okay? Because then I've got cases after cases I've not touched. I have got to go very hard. I will go at your case very hard, and at that point, I've got to move on. Okay, I'm not going to leave something open so long. I've got to move on. So I'm going to give you this weekend an opportunity. If anything stirs up in you, like I said, you think that, hey, if I presented this to the community, this community might tear me up, because it is something that I did do. You know, whether it's your emotion is high or whether you didn't mean to, and I will give you compassion on that side. I understand that, but you still have to take responsibility, and I'm just telling you, then come clean with it. I'm going to give you this weekend. Hey, if I don't hear from you, what evidence will speak for itself, and I've got to move on, okay? But I'd much rather, when I tell people, come in and give me your side, explain this, because guess what? I type that goes past me, okay? That allows someone else to have some understanding, I believe, because.
And now, what are you referring to? That, I mean, you think that I figured out where she could go or tried to help her get away?
I'm not. We're not stirring that up. All I'm saying, here's what I'm leaving it at. Okay, if there are some actions that you made in your relationship with Elizabeth, okay, that were poor decisions on your side, because I'd say this is a poor decision, okay? And I'm not going to slap you to prison walls. This is poor decision. If there's something else that stirs up of a poor decision, and you'd rather have, you know, I will give you the opportunity that you bring it to me than me do the hunt work and so forth. It looks worse on that side. Then what I'm saying is I'm going to leave my phone line open to that, okay? But with that, I'm basically, if I hear from you, it's because you're going to come clean. I'm not going to play any games on the phone.
I understand.
So that's what I'm saying.
If I can think of anything that I might have said or did or told somebody, or
I'm leaving my phone line open to you on that level, okay? I think that's having some understanding for you, out of all fairness, okay? Okay.
I'll go through every email I've got and look and see, did I ever say anything to
I would much rather
or,
come out one way than another way. Absolutely. Okay. Let me.
We're done?
Here, at this time, I'd like Detective Ramirez to return to the stand.
You gonna come on back up?
Hey, Detective, we've just finished listening to that very long interview. During the interview, the defendant says to you something about an interview at the jail with Elizabeth Johnson and something about a conversation with Channel 5, and your response to her was, "I'll take that with a grain of salt." What did you mean by that?
Well, Tammi was in the media making many different statements, and there were inconsistencies to what I had heard from her. During the interview, she had stated that, for example, that I could pull the interview, and I was just stating that, I certainly could pull that, but I couldn't put a lot of weight into it because she was making different statements depending on who she was with in terms of the media.
Now, it's possible I've asked you this question before, and if I have, defense counsel in the court may tell me that, but during your investigation, was there anything that anybody found in this investigation that connected Elizabeth Johnson with the state of Tennessee?
No.
During this interview, you mentioned to the defendant, would you be comfortable with telling Channel 5 what you did? Why did you ask her that question?
I was trying to make her be honest, be responsible with her actions in terms of the forgery. She had made many statements out to the media, and I just presented if she would be comfortable with now this, what she admitted to doing, if she would be comfortable with making that statement out to the media.
Was there media present at the police station when you interviewed the defendant on this day?
Yes.
Did the Tempe Police Department invite them?
No.
And where exactly were they in relation to where you were having this interview?
I remember media being in the lobby and also in the outside part of our station.
And did you at some point become aware that the defendant had made a statement to the media about the interview you had just conducted?
Yes.
And how did you become aware of that? Did you see it?
The following day, which was January 15th of 2010, I was advised by another coworker that KPHO Channel 5 had released a media release that she did an interview soon after my interview with her. And I actually saw that on the internet.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Detective, I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 230. Do you recognize that that is something that you looked at earlier this afternoon?
Yes.
And what is that?
That is the media release from KPHO.
Now, does this particular disc include the reporter's comments?
No.
Is it an edited version that takes out the reporter's comments?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I move to admit exhibit number 230.
The objection?
Your Honor.
Exhibit 230 is admitted.
Your Honor, I request permission to publish this.
You may publish it.
I will tell you we were having a little trouble earlier with the video, so hopefully we can get this to work.
Okay.
This is
I'm sorry.
This is very short.
I made a poor decision back when I met Elizabeth. Instead of her putting a false name there, then yes, I helped her put another name. Just pray about it. That's all I can say. I honestly, that was something that, that I did because I wanted to help somebody else not get hurt, So, you guys can believe it or you cannot believe it.
Your Honor, that got cut off because the reporters actually cut it off.
Okay.
Detective, while you were conducting this interview with the defendant on January 14, 2010, what was Detective Thompson doing?
He was doing the free talk with Elizabeth Johnson at the jail.
And And while Detective Thompson was communicating with Elizabeth Johnson and you were with the defendant, were you and Detective Thompson communicating with each other?
Not on January 14th, no.
So you had no information what was happening in the free talk during this interview?
No.
After this interview, directly after this interview, what did you do?
I started to prepare a search warrant for the Smith's residence on the 14th.
And why is it that you decided to prepare a search warrant at that time?
As the interview was concluded, Tammi Smith had stated that she would go home and go through her email, go through her computer. I had, from earlier interviews, she had also made comments of jurisdiction, doing some search and so forth. Since she had just participated in an interview with me where she admitted to the forgery, to placing her handwriting on that court document, I was afraid that when she returned home, she may erase anything of evidentiary value off of her computer, so I prepared a search warrant.
And at some point in time after or during the time you were preparing the search warrant, did you talk to the defendant again?
Yes, on January 14th, 2010, at approximately 9:15 in the evening, she had telephoned me at my desk line.
And what was the reason she telephoned you at that point?
She called me to let me know that officers were in her residence. I had informed her that I was preparing a search warrant. She had stated that she had called her attorney. Her attorney had asked if we had a search warrant in hand. She also admitted to me that she had allowed the officers in her home. And I was trying to explain to her that I was in the middle of preparing the search warrant, working as fast as I could, but that at that time I was pretty occupied. And we did speak for a few more minutes. She discussed with me the hour of the night, that it was her family's bedtime. Could we serve this search warrant the following day? I explained to her that due to preserving evidence, that no, we could not serve it the following day. And she said that she wanted to tell me something about within 24 hours of finding out that she couldn't change court jurisdiction, that she might have spoken to some people about some scenarios. I did explain to her that I could speak to her in person once I arrived. Again, I was preoccupied with trying to prepare that search warrant.
And Detective, I'm going to go ahead and show you the exhibit this time. I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 3. Do you recognize this?
Yes, it's my writing.
And what is that?
It's the phone call prior to the search warrant that I was just speaking about.
Your Honor, I move for the admission of exhibit number 3.
Any objection? Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Your Honor, permission to publish?
You may.
And while Ms. Ramona is getting that ready for us, I'm going to go ahead and ask you a couple more questions, Detective. There's a couple of extra tracks on this that we're not going to play. What's in those extra tracks? Is it?
I believe she had phoned me in terms of general questions about the search warrant, and I specifically recall I was just super busy at the time of preparing it.
And you indicated that
Whatever they want to do would happen.
You indicated that she mentioned some scenarios. Are these scenarios that she had discussed with you previously?
Yes, in bits and parts, she had discussed different scenarios.
At this time, Your Honor, we'd like to go ahead and play it.
You may.
To do that, but they were saying that you're going to be coming here and you might be here in about an hour and a half. And when they first got here, I said, I'm just going to call my attorney just to let them know that you're here, you know. Sure. And he's like, well, do they have their search warrant in their hand? And I said, no, they don't have one yet. And he's like, well, you don't have to let him in. And I said, I don't mind. I have nothing to hide, so let's let him in. I don't care. But, you know, it's like this is our bedtime. And
here's where we're at. The search warrant has been sent off. I am waiting for the judge to sign off on it.
and he has my cell. So it just got completed. I walked over from the fax machine. I just sent it like 30 seconds ago. So it should get signed. And are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm yawning. I'm just exhausted.
It will be an after-hours search, which is past 10 o'clock, only because of the time frame of putting it together and getting all of the information.
Patricia, I don't understand. Why couldn't you guys have done this like first thing in the morning or something?
For the preservation of evidence, we can't. And so what I'm telling you is I just sent it off. It should be soon. I mean, I'm hoping that the judge is not in court, and so that's why I pushed to get it through like right now. I just sent it off. So I'm waiting here, and then as soon as we get the signed search warrant back, they resend it to me fax. We are on our way up there.
Okay.
So I am working, at this point I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for it to get signed, and then I get it in my hand. I have it in my hands. I need to make you your top copy, which is just seconds of going to the, just going to the copy machine, and then we are on our way out.
Okay, and right before they got here, and I would have called you before, but they said that you were on your way out here, so there was no sense in calling you. But right before they got here, you told me, think about stuff and think about text messages and friends.
There are some other parts to this. This does not just involve your interview. And so in piecing that together, and I'll explain more to you in detail, but the search warrant is not based just on your interview. The information that came through was also after our interview, and that is a part of the late search. And so this involves your interview as well as a second interview. And that's why, I have been typing nonstop to get this done as soon as possible. And it just got sent off.
Okay. Well, there was something I was going to tell you that I remembered. I'm trying to really, 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 really think of all this stuff. And the only thing that I could possibly think of is in that, right before we found out that she could not change jurisdictions, within about 24 hours of that time, I might have talked to some people about scenarios and ran scenarios past people. I can't remember who or what exactly the scenarios of, if she could change jurisdictions and how things like that, running scenarios past people to see what legalities, what is legal, what is not legal, and that kind of thing. And I talked to people about different scenarios, but sorry. But once we found out that that's not allowed, and then that was probably less than 24 hours we were talking about stuff like that. But as far as anything else, I cannot think.
I'm on the phone with Ms. Smith.
Go ahead.
I just cannot think of anything else. I really can't.
Fair enough. We, like I said, as soon as the judge signs off on this, we are leaving. So it's just a matter of waiting for that to get signed, and then we are out the door.
What are you guys looking for? Do you think the baby's here?
I will serve you this once I get there and explain it to you. And my whole part is not grief to serve this late. It's that it has been nonstop of typing this. I just sent it off, and as soon as it gets signed, we will be out the door. Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately, we are coming from the station to your residence, and we may. I really can't. In case sometimes there has to. I have to wait for the judge here at my in the office. As soon as we get it signed, we are out the door.
Okay. So I can't think of anything. The only thing I could possibly think of is a scenario of, changing jurisdictions, having,
Is Sergeant Johnson with you?
There's a bunch of people here.
Okay.
But in those scenarios, I know one scenario we were talking about was, and this was not, these were scenarios that we were talking about. I think me and Deanne might have been talking about these scenarios together. and it was at nighttime. I was drinking wine. We were drinking,
What's the scenario? What's the scenario?
I remember us talking about something about what happened with Hannah. How with Hannah, her father he's actually not even the birth father because he didn't sign the birth certificate. They weren't legally married. The mother lied and said that they were married and they weren't. So the state of Tennessee thought that they were married, but he was supposed to go to court. The state gave us the custody, but she was still in DCF custody.
Mm-hmm.
After about 2 years, after about a year, the father came to court like once or twice and didn't do anything that the judge told him to do. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking about a year later is when, because he just disappeared again. So basically he was out of the whole picture. And probably about maybe a year later is when she came up for adoption and mom signed the papers and everything was done legitimately and legally completely. They couldn't find the father, so by default, we were able to adopt her. And I might have talked to Deanne about that scenario, but it was literally, this was before this was after Elizabeth was gone. This was when Elizabeth was trying to figure out what to do, and us trying to get her back here, and us trying to figure out what could be done. What is the legalities? We're thinking by her telling us she's got full custody, you know what I mean? So that's the only possible thing, that could even remotely sound like I was doing anything bad, but this was not anything I was doing. This was just, is this a legal thing? Can this actually be done? But the only way anything could ever be done is let's wait till the morning till we research to find out, can you even change jurisdictions? And the answer was no. And so that ended there immediately. And the answer was no. So there was nothing there.
Okay.
But this has nothing, it's got nothing to do with where he is now and what happened to him. That's the only thing. I have searched my brain, believe me, because I'm scared to death that I don't know what in the world you guys could possibly, what I could have, I was drinking. Did I text something weird that I don't remember? I don't think so. But that's the only thing that I could even think that could have been remotely something bad. But it wasn't even, it was me talking to my friend, of a scenario. And then the next morning, getting on the computer and saying, nope, that can't work. That's illegal. Hello, it's illegal. I'm not going to do it, Right. Just like the family that I was supposed to adopt their baby, they wanted more money than the courts, than what you're allowed to give, So then that answer was no.
Okay.
I'm just so confused in all of this because I know that we did absolutely nothing to get her to leave. We didn't do anything to get her to leave, and I know beyond any shadow of a doubt that we didn't say or do anything to get her to leave. And all I know is that when we found out what the legal, because as a person, you're sitting here, you're stressed out. You got all this stuff coming out, and it's like you want to help. But at the same time, you also want to make sure you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's, And it's like, okay, it's evening time, going to have a glass of wine, and I'm having somebody tell me all this stuff, and it's like, ooh, that, we're getting all this stuff coming after. I might have another glass of wine, And like tonight, I poured me a glass. I think I had 2 or 3 sips, and it's still just sitting there, because I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm not drinking wine. I don't want to say anything wrong or you know what I mean, because I am a lightweight. I can't, I usually like to drink wine once it's Hannah's bedtime. It's time for me to have a glass of wine or two. So.
Well, here's where we are at. Okay, so here's what I said even in the interview is it makes it a whole lot easier in coming forward if you...
And I am, and this is what I'm coming forward, and I don't know anything else.
Well, then,
I don't know
if you don't know
else.
anything else, then at that point, you can relax. The problem is, I
But
encourage you to come
did I text
forward
something
because-
that night that sounds even worse than that? I don't believe I did. I honestly don't
Right.
believe I did.
Because if
But as
there's-
far as, go ahead.
Because if there's evidence to support otherwise, what I'm telling you, Tammy, is that's going to come back on you in terms of consequences and criminal consequences. It's not a threat. It's a simple point of if you commit a crime, there are consequences to that. So what I asked you to do, just like in the interview, is to sit back, think about it. If you need to come forward, you need to do it now. Because I would hate to see, I mean, you already have an issue from even past, the evidence that I have right now. And, well, I'm saying in terms of the court document, in terms of I have some other things that are pending in reference to you, and that's why I said I think there's a whole lot more understanding when you come clean with things. If it requires, I'm just telling you that if you participated further in assisting her, okay, even when she's gone, let's say she takes off on her own. Let's say she took off to San Antonio.
Are you talking about like maybe with money or with helping her get a hotel?
Here's what I'm going to propose. Here's what I'm saying. Okay, if Elizabeth took off on her own, she takes off to San Antonio. Okay, she takes off on her own. But if you assisted while she was gone, and if you do not come clean with that, and that's all supported in evidence. Well, it's by, I'll give you an example, by an offer to hide her, to conceal her, to have her use a condominium, if I have...
But we told you that. We were telling you that. If we were telling you that, if we could see her and stuff.
Okay, there's a difference between if you need a place to stay, an open, let's say you've got a friend, and you're like, hey, if you need a place to stay because you're homeless, I have a place that you can stay at. That's one thing. But if you present that, hey, I will assist you in concealing and you can stay at my place, that's a complete different thing.
Okay. Now we could have the word hide could have come through there. But you got to remember, she told us that she had full custody of this baby, full custody at that point. This probably was less than 24 hours of us talking and discussing this.
How can she have full custody when I have you in interviews that she was aware that when she took off, she knew that that was the weekend that she was supposed to turn him over to, and so I've got you on the opposite of you knowing.
No, and I'll tell you why. Because she said that Logan said, well, I want to see my child, and she said the judge said, well, when are you available? And he told him. She thought that was just a one-time visit thing. So I was trying to figure out what she could do, and if I talked to her that night while drinking wine and talking to her and talking to somebody else about the whole situation, the next morning when I got on that computer, whatever I may have said that night, I also reiterated by saying, in the morning, I'm going to check this out and see what the legalities are. The first thing in that morning when I woke up and I started researching, I immediately said, nope, forget it. It can't be done. It cannot be done.
Tammy, here's what I'm not understanding. So if you assisted her on the 14th, okay, with documentation, with paternity issues, and she wants to get away because she tells you on the 17th that she has to turn the baby over to Logan come 8 o'clock. What I'm telling you is you do know at that point. And I've got you, there are too many interviews, okay? There's too much that you have shared, and all I've asked you to do to help yourself is that you need to come clean. If I do it my way in terms of all the evidence, okay, what I'm saying is it is then very hard to have some understanding because, I have tried to help you that don't make this a bigger problem than it already is. And it's very simple. It comes down to coming clean and admitting responsibility and not being a part of a bigger mess. This is a possible homicide investigation. We do not have Gabriel.
You know what? Before all of this, I didn't know it was going to be an investigation. And if I could see it now, I wouldn't have been drinking any wine. First of all, I probably wouldn't have even taken her calls. I thought I was helping. I didn't help to hide her. I did one night talk about the fact that we had, that we were under very much stress with talking to her, very much stress over her telling us the horrible things about Logan. Okay, so here we are thinking, okay, if this is what we need to do, then maybe we can do this. But first we have to find out if you can change jurisdictions or not. We looked into that. The very next morning, I searched and researched through the computer, and you will find that I researched through the computer. And then you'll find in my computer when I researched it that I even tried calling attorneys. I tried emailing attorneys to ask them, and since I couldn't get a hold of an attorney, I called Janet, and I asked Janet in Nashville to call her and tell her, please tell her, come back home. This can't be done. She cannot change jurisdictions, because I don't know what the law is, whether or not she had full custody or partial custody or anything. I did not know what the law was. I was just trying to help her.
Okay.
But did I help her? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, did I help her get away or do anything? No, it was one night. One night we were talking to her on the phone. One night we had already been drinking before she even called in or before we started talking to her. And she was just very distraught, didn't know what to do, and wasn't going to come back. She was going to go on the run. She was going to change her Social Security.
Did you now, I came to you on Tuesday, which is the 29th. I came to you on the 31st. I gave you an opportunity because the way I work is, it's a different ballgame if I have to, I ask you to be straightforward, to come clean, to take some responsibility, and we'll make this as simple as we can make it.
See, in my mind, this had nothing to do with the disappearance because we didn't do anything. We
talked
just talked about
a person about concealing a person you think has nothing to do with the disappearance?
I don't think it was really that, though. It was, in our minds, it wasn't that we were trying to conceal her. I don't remember it that way.
The problem is that evidence is supporting something completely different. And here's what I wish for you, Tammi. I do not wish for a big mess. I do not wish for this huge mess on your hands. Okay, I would like this to be simple for you. I would like you to take the responsibility of ownership of what you've done here, and let's make this as small as we can make it. Or else, once I release and once I tell you that, hey, don't create a huge mess for yourself. We can, I will work with you the best that I can.
I don't know what to do to work with you. I don't know what to do to work with you.
Okay.
I'm telling you.
Here is my stand with you. Here's what I was trying to leave the weekend open for you. Or
hold on, please. What? I'm right here, honey. Come here. Come here. I'm talking to the detective. Come here. Why aren't you coming here? Well, don't worry about that. I'm talking to Detective Ramirez. They can follow you. What?
What's it?
Yeah, I
don't know.
I am waiting for a phone call. The minute I get that signed back, and the only problem is it's out of my hands that if a judge is in a courtroom, then I have to wait for that judge to come.
He's waiting for a judge to sign it.
And the minute it's signed, we are leaving. It has already been faxed away.
Okay.
And so,
you're saying evidence. Are you talking about evidence on our computers, or
I have to leave you. I have to leave you a portion of the search warrant. I'm going to leave you a portion of this, your portion that I have to leave you with. I will be speaking with you. Here is what I'm asking you to sit with Tammi, though, is that, hey, if this started off where, I certainly do not believe that this meant to be as big of a deal in terms of this went pretty sour, okay? And I would hate to see you tied up in this. But the only way to come free of this is to be honest with your role. And I'm trying to help you out. I am trying.
Honest as I can be. We were both drinking pretty good that night. When she called, she got us very upset, and I don't know if you've ever been drinking and you get a phone call if somebody's getting you upset, and you get really like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And that is the thing with me and Deanne. We've always, we are more drinking buddies than anything else.
So to what point did you talk about concealing Elizabeth? So lay that out to me. To what point did you talk about it?
That was for that night. We talked about it that night.
So
not really concealing, though.
Okay. You used the word hide. Then to what degree did you say?
Because I thought I heard you say that, and I'm saying, this is what we were saying. Basically, and I don't even remember if I even talked to anybody about it, honestly.
Okay, so what do you remember?
Okay, so I just remember us talking about the fact that, that we've got a house out there. We've got my stepson's got a condo. If she needs to hang out there or whatever we said, I don't remember exactly how it was said. And if I worded something wrong, that's not what we meant by it. If we worded anything about her staying at the condo or anything in a hideaway or anything like that, we did not mean to word it that way. And I know that you are looking at this whole case right now and thinking, I don't know what it is that I worded, because I can tell you, I had a few glasses of wine. Jack had beers, and however that was worded, it was not meant to be worded in an ugly way. What we were trying to do was we were just merely talking about the fact that we have that. Let's see if she can change jurisdictions. Let's see if, because honestly, everything that we've been told about Logan is maybe he held that baby 4 or 5 times in his whole life. He's never been around. I mean, these are the things we're being told. So we're thinking, oh, well, the father doesn't care. And we're thinking all these things. Oh, he doesn't care.
He doesn't look for us.
What? I know I'm not talking her out of this. I'm fine. I'm just talking to her. And that's all I know. That's all I know. I was talking to her as a friend, not somebody I knew that was actually I'm doing my best to not let her go run off with that baby and stay away forever and ever and ever. I was doing everything I could. If I could get her in Tennessee in one of my houses, we knew where she was. That was important. I thought that I was helping get this baby settled somewhere.
Tammy, and here is a part of a problem here. When I interviewed you once, when I interviewed you twice, when I interviewed you 3 times, and I'm not. This is my push for you to come clean and not have this be a huge mess for you. Okay, come on, this is a missing child. This is
I understand that. It's a huge deal.
It is a huge deal. So when I ask you directly in terms of hiding, concealing, we discussed Tennessee. We discussed a residence, which was very vague. You gave me very, very vague. You did not give this on one and on the second interview. And in fact, on the second interview, when I asked you specific things on that week, you became very upset. You stood up off your chair.
Because my sister was there, and
I'm not
I
here
had
to
to
create.
her
I'm a pretty understanding detective. I'm not here to yell. I'm not here to create this huge mess for you. I'm actually here to try and help you out. But when I did that, okay, you put up a wall, and you basically, none of this came out then. And so what I'm saying is,
I'll tell you why.
Huge mess, or make it simple for yourself.
Okay, well, I'll tell you why. I was upset for a lot of reasons. One is I didn't have anything to do with his disappearance, and I know that already.
Tammy, this is the judge. I'm going to have to hang up, okay?
Okay. All right.
That's okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Before we get into more questions, I think it's time for our break. So we're going to take our afternoon break. We'll come back in about 15 minutes. Until then, remember the admonition. We'll see you in about 15 minutes. Okay, please be seated, everyone. Remind me to ask you how long each audio is going to take so I can plan our breaks, because we went extra time, which to me is not a big deal, but I was getting some looks with the jury that they were in need of a break, so I don't want to make them wait any longer than they need to wait. Anybody need to talk about anything before
Yes,
break?
Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the defense would move for a mistrial. Your Honor, the testimony of Detective Ramirez
and the playing of this recording is impermissible testimony and commentary on Ms. Smith invoking her Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment rights. There are comments that Detective Ramirez made that Ms. Smith had called her attorney prior to Detective Ramirez coming out to the house with a search warrant while officers were there. There are a number of comments made by Ms. Smith during the phone call that, quote, "We've called our attorney." She explains conversations she's had with her attorney. Your Honor, the state has intentionally elicited improper testimony. This testimony implies guilt and concealment. It's not permissible. It's clearly impermissible under the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments. It is not harmless error, Your Honor. I'm citing State versus Palenquis, 188 Arizona 201, 933 Pac 2nd 1269. Your Honor, if I may read a couple of brief passages from that case. The use by the prosecutor of the refusal of entry, like of the silence by the prosecutor, can have but one objective: to induce the jury to infer guilt. In the case of silence, the prosecutor can argue that if the defendant had nothing to hide, he would not keep silent. In the case of the refusal of entry, the prosecutor can argue that if the defendant were not trying to hide something or someone, she would have let the officer in. In either case, whether the argument is made or not, the desired inference may be well drawn by the jury. This is why the evidence is inadmissible in the case of silence. It is also why the evidence is inadmissible in the case of a refusal to let the officer search. In effect, Your Honor, what's going on here is my client was trying to invoke her Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment rights, her right to not be searched without a search warrant, her right to speak with her attorney. And, Your Honor, their eliciting of this testimony is not harmless error under the Palenquis matter, so we would move for a mistrial at this time.
Let me ask you, are you talking about mainly the substance of what's in the audio?
Both, and Detective Ramirez's testimony leading up to the playing of the audio.
But didn't you stipulate to the admission of that audio?
Well, Your Honor, I did not object to the playing of the audio. That's correct.
You didn't object to it. Maybe it's not classic invited error, but aren't I then reviewing for essentially a fundamental error? If you're letting it in and now you're telling me that it shouldn't be in. I mean, and you reviewed it before, so right out of the box, I'm questioning why we're even having this discussion. Putting that aside, then, I guess what you're telling me is you shouldn't have not objected, and it's now come in. Is it fundamental error? Then I guess I have to answer that question, but I'm right away concerned about the framework that I'm looking at this through.
Well, I appreciate that, Your Honor, and I believe that Detective Ramirez commented on Ms. Smith calling her attorney prior to the playing of the audio. And perhaps I need to check the transcript. I'm not positive about that. My notes reflect that.
I don't think she testified that there was a refusal to allow the other officers in, although I'd have to go back and look because I wasn't keyed in on it since you had not objected to the testimony. Further, you had an idea that this was coming, so I didn't have a heads up and I didn't worry about it. There's been various things in the audio that maybe if someone objected to, like hearsay, there might have been an issue, but there wasn't. So I can look at the case, but I think I'm looking at it through I'm looking at this with a different analysis than I would be if you were objecting before it came out. I mean, I'm now, would you agree, looking at whether there's been fundamental error made letting it in because you didn't object. Isn't that right?
Well, that's possible, Your Honor.
Okay. Let me see what the state has to say about that, and we'll figure out what we're going to do.
Your Honor, I will advise the court that I can't recall if it was after trial started, but it was early on in this case. I emailed Ms. Phillips and I advised her that we intended to play the interviews with the defendant, and I asked her if she felt that there was anything that needed to be redacted from any of the interviews to let me know as soon as possible so that we could take the steps to redact them prior to playing. I heard no response from Ms. Phillips. Then, in reviewing the interviews that we wanted to play, we became aware that some of the interviews referred to the polygraph and the offer to take the polygraph. And so I, on my own, had those redacted, provided those transcripts and those redacted tapes to Ms. Phillips, and again asked her, take a look at these, let me know if there's anything you think needs to be redacted from any of these interviews. Then, Your Honor, the February 10th or the February 2nd, 2010 interview that we have not yet gotten to is after the defendant's arrest. I redacted that on my own, talked to Ms. Phillips about it. She gave me some information she wanted redacted from it. I redacted that information, gave it back to Ms. Phillips, and advised her in that interview there's some conversation the defendant makes about her attorney, and I've still not heard from Ms. Phillips about any of those comments needing to be redacted. So at this point, it was my assumption that Ms. Phillips had no intention of wanting us to redact any conversation the defendant made about her attorney. I think it's a rightful assumption based on all the information I just provided, especially the fact that the defendant has been throwing out her attorney throughout this case left and right. In fact, if you recall from the recording that we played this morning from the interview at the police station on January 14, 2010, the defendant told the detective when she mentioned her attorney that she has an attorney, not in relation to this case because she doesn't need one, but that she has an attorney and she referred to her attorney. The defendant called Detective Ramirez during this phone call that we just played. The detective didn't call her. The defendant called the Detective Ramirez. Detective Ramirez didn't want to talk to her. She wanted to wait until she got there for the search warrant. There was no invocation of her right to an attorney. She didn't say, I'm invoking my right to an attorney. I want to talk to my attorney before I talk to you. She continued to talk to the detective on the phone call that she made to her, as she does in each and every one of the interviews that she conducts with the detective.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think two things are important. One, I don't think Ms. Phillips is arguing that you ignored any request from her or that there was any suggestion from her that you shouldn't play it. So there's no issue with respect to you getting something in that there was no agreement that would come in. I don't think that's the issue that she's raising. She's at least implicitly saying that they should have objected earlier. Also, it's a little bit different than just talking about an attorney, her argument. Her argument is that this is analogous to, this is a situation where someone is saying you can't come search until you get a search warrant, and that's inadmissible. And it's just that, regardless of the attorney. Yes, it's being communicated via, I'm waiting, my attorney told me you need a warrant. But I think the argument is that any testimony regarding a defendant invoking their right to require a search warrant under the Fourth Amendment should not come in, and that allowing it in is reversible error, I think, is the argument. I will tell you my initial reaction, first of all, as I said before, the fact that there is no objection to it coming in has an effect, at least I think with the framework or relating to the framework of my analysis, number one. Number two, I am aware that there's been a lot of discussion about what attorneys have told her and affirmative waivers of attorney-client privilege communication coming from her to the detective. Third, I'm aware that this is a phone call from her to the detective. It's not under questioning. It's not communication that came after a situation where rights should have been read or rights were read, and I'm aware of that as well. I also think, at least initially, to the extent that it's error to let it in, I think with this jury, the impact in terms of how it came in is not significant, and I can always instruct them they're not to consider any statement made to relating to the requirement of a search warrant. I can take a look at the case, but I don't think you're going to get me there in terms of a mistrial for all of those reasons. And I will consider it. I don't need to rule on it right now. If I conclude later today that we've just created a mistrial, then I can declare a mistrial tomorrow or whenever I come to that conclusion. But I will tell you that I don't think you're going to get me there. And it's obviously something I would want to look at more extensively, not give you an off-the-cuff answer right now. But my thought is you're going to have to work to get me there because I don't see it. But I will take a look at it, and I'll hear you again on it because this is an objection or a motion made during a break, and so we may have more time to think about it and further argue it. and I'll consider it, but I'm not going to grant it now. I'll essentially, for right now, take it under advisement, and then we can talk about it perhaps at the end of the day, more likely tomorrow, after I've had a chance to look a little bit more at it and consider what you just told me. All right?
Thank you.
All right.
And Your Honor, I'm just a little concerned now about the effect of the future interviews we intend to play, based on the fact that there has not been an objection made after I asked Ms. Phillips to let me know if there was anything she was concerned about, especially in that February 2nd, 2010 interview, where she is under arrest. We took out the fact that she was in custody. We took out all of that conversation, but I specifically told Ms. Phillips, look at that end of the interview, because she's talking about her attorney showing up and being there, and I've heard no response back about whether or not she felt that needed to be taken out. And we could have taken it out. We could have taken it out last week. But now we're here today. I imagine we will get to it. And we're here today with our edited version that we thought the defense had no problem with, because they gave me no indication of an issue with it.
Based on what I've heard, it sounds to me like you're probably going to object to this next interview. Is that fair?
Your Honor, I have to look at it again over the break, and I would just address the fact that, yes, there have been comments by Ms. Smith throughout the trial on the recordings about an attorney, but it's in a completely different context than this, Your Honor, and that's why we haven't objected.
It is a different context, there's no doubt. But the fact remains that you did not object to the audio where this was coming in. And after it was played, so when you're telling me you're entitled to a mistrial, and that's obviously going to create an initial reaction for me that says, wait a minute, you can't come in after you fail to object and tell me there's been a mistrial. I'm aware that there's some authority that if it's fundamental error, maybe there is a basis. I don't think you're going to get me there, and I'll let you try and get me there. But now I want to play forward, and I'm concerned about having a variation of this discussion after the next audio tape where you say, wait a minute, once again, I may not have objected before, and I didn't have time to look at it over the break, but there's a problem right now. And so we need to either, and I think discretion may be wise here, to wait to play it if there's going to be a question about it. If there's an issue relating to her discussing a lawyer or something else relating to her status in custody, maybe it won't change, maybe I'd let it in, but maybe we should wait. I understand how the state might be frustrated by that because there was not an objection to it. But now we are where we are, so I suggest that we don't create or potentially open the door to more problems. If there's going to be an issue, let's talk about it now. So I'm going to look to you when we come back in a few minutes and say, do you have an objection to this at all? And if you say no, then you're going to greatly undercut any future argument that it shouldn't have come in.
And I will look at it again, Your Honor, during the break.
Okay. All right. So we'll talk before the jury comes out again and see if we've got an issue going forward. So I'll be back out in a few minutes and we'll figure out what we're going to do. All right? Okay, Ms. Smith's not here. We're outside the presence of the jury. I can see we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with an exhibit, looks like. Do we have an agreement on that exhibit, or are we going to have an issue?
I'm not sure, Judge. First of all, what exhibit number?
It's going to be exhibit number 208.
Okay.
And this is a February
2nd, 2010 interview. And Your Honor, for the court's information, we intend to play, before we get to that, the confrontation call between Elizabeth Johnson and the defendant. And then we intend to talk about an interview that occurred after the search warrant on January 14, 2010. It was not our intention to play the search warrant interview. We were just going to have the detective talk about it. I was going to move to admit it, but I think we're going to conditionally admit it so that Ms. Phillips can look through that one too, to make sure she doesn't have any objection to anything in that one.
And what number is that one?
Exhibit number 226.
And what's the date of that interview?
That was January 14, 2010. There's another interview at the search warrant.
Okay. Okay, the same evening?
The same evening, which we haven't gotten to in testimony yet.
Okay.
The issue with the February 2nd, 2010 interview is at the point where we started it with the redactions that we previously agreed on. The detective Mirandizes the defendant. And the defendant states, and the detective asks her, will you voluntarily answer my questions? And the defendant states, I will, depending on what questions they are. And if I feel like my attorney needs to be here then, the detective responds, okay, that's fair. And the defendant responds, I won't answer the ones that I feel my attorney may not want me to answer. And the detective says, okay, that's fair, because you can stop at any point. So the way, and then the defendant says, okay. And then the detective says, I'm understanding is that you'll voluntarily start the interview, and if you want to stop and so forth, then we need to do that, then we will do that, okay? And the defendant responds with an and then they start talking in the interview.
Okay, what's the defense objection/concern with that February 2nd interview?
And here's my objection/concern, Your Honor, and I was trying to resolve this with Ms. Andrews before Your Honor took the bench.
That's true.
I think that we can be safe if we get past that portion of the interview. The concern, Your Honor, is state's position is obviously that my client has waived her Miranda rights. Our position, Your Honor, is that it's really not unequivocal. It's really not clear. She says, in the transcript, but it's not an unequivocal waiver of her rights. And then a couple of lines down later, she says, I think I'd rather my attorney explain the things that we've heard so he knows how to explain them correctly. I think that can be solved, Your Honor, if the state just starts that interview in a little bit farther, a couple of pages, and I pointed out to Ms. Andrews where might be a better place to start to avoid any issues. But, Your Honor, mainly I'm objecting to the fact that this is cumulative. This is more interview between Detective Ramirez and Ms. Smith that is the same stuff over and over and over and over again, and the jury has heard it. So I think most importantly, Your Honor, we're objecting to the fact that it is cumulative information, really more than anything else.
Well, I haven't heard the audio tape, so I can't rule on a cumulative objection because I can't yet put it into context. If you have a transcript, I'll look at it. Or if you want me to listen to audio tape, I can obviously tonight if you want me to do that. So we have various issues flying around here with respect to a Miranda issue, a objection as to the cumulative nature or alleged cumulative nature of the evidence. We've got that ongoing issue relating to the search warrant sitting there as well. I'm not sure. It sounds to me like we're not in a position to play the February 2nd interview, and I'm not sure we're going to get there at this point anyway because it's almost 4 o'clock, and so it's not like we're going to be letting the jury go particularly early if we have a little bit more testimony, and then we have some time maybe to work it out tonight in terms of a stipulation as to what's coming in the February 2nd interview. I don't know if the state's going to be stuck on if we're going to have a Miranda issue. Of course, that would be an issue that I would have expected to have been raised and resolved long ago, but it wasn't and it hasn't. So if I need to deal with that, I will. As to a cumulative objection, we're not getting too far away. I've heard the same thing multiple times. It's still, to some degree for me, an evolution of statements that Ms. Smith made, but we're getting to the point where if I'm hearing the same thing again and again, I'm not sure it's introducing anything new. Of course, I haven't heard Ms. Smith testify, and whether there's an argument that, okay, she said one thing in court and we want to hear it again outside in a different way, I don't know. I can't put that into context. So I guess from my perspective right now, what I'm inclined to do is I think I heard the state saying you wanted to play or get illicit testimony regarding another interview that occurred the night of the warrant.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any objection to the testimony relating to that interview or the statements made in that interview?
Well, Judge, I'm not clear on which that is. We had started talking about it when Your Honor took the bench, so I just want to be 100% clear. which interview that is.
Aaron, that was for Ms. Phillips' information. It was the old exhibit number 95, or the old number 995.
Okay.
That used to be an exhibit, but it was redacted.
Right, I remember 95.
Provided to defense counsel with the redactions to take out the polygraph.
Okay.
And it's now exhibit number 226 with the redactions.
And we did discuss this, Your Honor. Frankly, Your Honor, there are so many tapes and so many renumberings. It's just gotten a bit confusing. So I will apologize to the court. It's not that the defense has not been diligent. There's just an overwhelming amount of information, Your Honor, and things keep getting renumbered and redacted and switched and changed and re-recorded. And so for that reason, Your Honor, we're getting a little tired and sometimes we get a little confused. So my apologies to the court. We're certainly not intending to delay these proceedings.
Okay, let's play forward, and we're talking about 226 now. Do you have any issue with 226?
I need one moment, Your Honor, so that I can double check.
So my inclination, if we don't have an issue with 226, is to elicit testimony relating to the interview set forth in Exhibit 226, and then anything else you can leading up to the February 2nd interview, and then we stop so we can see if you can work it out. And then we'll talk, after we let the jury go, a little more about the motion for mistrial, because I've had some time to think about it. I already have an idea of what I'm thinking, which is denying the motion, but to the extent you want to propose that there's some sort of instruction guiding the jury as to how they should consider evidence regarding a refusal to or a statement made about an attorney and a search warrant, I'll hear you on it. But as I thought about it, even if the objection were timely, I don't think it's a mistrial. I don't think it renders the proceedings so unfair as to prevent a fair trial. I don't think you're going to ever get me there. I'm willing to consider an instruction, but even putting aside the issue of waiver of the objection, what do I do with that? I don't think it's a mistrial.
Well, Your Honor, in that case, we would move to strike that exhibit.
I think I'm going to strike it because there's the 98%, even by your own calculation, is fine. So I'm not going to strike the whole exhibit because that's not an appropriate response to a potential error. So I'm not going to strike the whole exhibit. Again, if you want me to consider striking maybe a sentence or two from it, if we've got a transcript, I'd consider that, or giving the jury directives on how to or what not to conclude from a defendant that requests a search warrant or discusses talking to their attorney about a search warrant. I'll hear you on it. Okay, so we know what we're going to do on going forward. Can we get the jury and are we on the same page yet? Oh, wait a minute, you needed to look at 226. Hold on.
I just wanted to be clear then.
And Your Honor, we're not intending to play Exhibit 226. We were going to move to admit it, however. So perhaps we can wait until tomorrow to move to admit it if the court will allow us to go back and do that after Ms. Phillips has it. And then we don't even have to talk about the exhibit itself today. We can just talk about the interview. I don't expect the detective to talk about attorneys when she talks about the interview.
It's hard for me to see there being a concern with the detective summarizing now what's in the interview versus playing the interview. And we're not going to admit 226, at least today. Do you still want some time to look at it, Ms. Phillips? I'll give you the time.
If I could have a moment.
I'll give you a minute. Go ahead and take a look at it.
Your Honor, so the court is aware how much time Ms. Phillips may need. It was a 58-minute interview.
As to Exhibit 226, I would again make a cumulative objection. This again is information that we've heard over and over again. However, if the court is inclined to allow the state to introduce this evidence, I would ask that the interview recording be played and not summarized by the detective. under the best evidence rule that they play the interview rather than just have the detective summarize it. Or in the alternative, Your Honor, if Ms. Smith testifies something to the contrary, they can impeach her with it. It's just...
Well, let me tell you my initial reaction. It's almost contradictory for you to tell me it's cumulative, but you want them to hear the whole thing instead of her summarizing it. There's going to be a lot less that comes out if she summarizes it versus playing it. There's going to be a lot more that comes out. Putting that aside, I also think that to the extent you think that it needs to be played, you're entitled to do that in cross-examination. But she's entitled to allow the detective to summarize it without playing it. There's no legal requirement that she play it. And if you want, just like with respect to Elizabeth Johnson's interview, you can play other portions if you think it would be helpful in cross-examination, but I'm not going to make them play the entire interview. I don't think that's appropriate. So I'm going to deny what I guess would call a best evidence objection. I don't think there's a basis to force the state to play it. In terms of it being cumulative, I haven't. If you want me to look at or listen to the entire interview, I will, but I'll tell you right now, I don't think you're at the point where I'm going to find that it's cumulative. Maybe after this one, you might start getting me there in terms of the next exhibit, the February 2nd interview, if I'm hearing the exact same thing again, maybe. But for this one, probably not. But again, for me to make an appropriate ruling, I think I need to listen to it, and I typically need a heads up because I will listen to them all if I know that there's a potential problem coming. So I'm denying the objection as to is it 226? 226.
Yes.
Okay. And the detective will be permitted to testify regarding the interview. And then we'll deal with the February 2nd interview, presumably tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on the same page with what we're doing? Okay. Ready to get the jury?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go get the jury.
Up on the witness stand.
I think you have to set up this. You mean as far as coming up before the jury?
Right.
Why don't you come on up so you're already up there so you don't have to walk up?
Yeah, we weren't going to play this one.
Right. I remember that. I think it's easier if she's already up here. That's faster. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Sorry it took a little while to get you back. Sometimes that happens, but we're ready to go now. And we left off with Detective Ramirez's testimony. So, Ms. Andrews, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hey, Detective, we were just talking about the search warrant at the defendant's home. What was your role in that search warrant?
We arrived at the Smith's residence on January 14th, 2010, and I was there to assist in executing the search warrant.
Now, we've actually heard from several other detectives who were there. When it was your role in helping execute that search warrant, what exactly did you do while you were there?
When I first arrived, Detective Duplessis, he was taking photographs of the layout of the home. Tammi Smith approached me and she stated that she wanted to speak with me. And I agreed to that interview with her.
And where was that interview conducted?
She directed me to a bedroom on the west side of the residence. So we went into a bedroom as Detective Duplessis started taking photographs. She asked that I sit on the carpet and speak with her, but I did inform her that I wasn't going to sit on the carpet. So she found me a small bench, and I sat on the bench as she sat on the carpet, and then we spoke.
And Detective, approximately how long did you talk to the defendant there at her home?
Just a little under an hour.
And during that conversation, did you speak about things that we've already discussed here during this trial?
Yes.
Was there anything new that you discussed with the defendant on this particular occasion?
Mrs. Smith did, I asked her if she had spoken to anybody in reference to this investigation, or Gabriel, not the investigation, let me correct myself, Gabriel. She stated that she had spoken to a friend that she named Becky Freestone. She had called Becky when Tammi Smith was presented with 2 children to adopt, and Becky had informed her that she was pregnant at the time, and it was just a short conversation that she informed me about.
And during this conversation, did you talk to the defendant any more about Deanna Ayala?
She spoke to me about Deanne, but it was pretty much similar statements to what she had presented earlier in terms of possibly talking to her about scenarios and changing jurisdiction.
Did the defendant provide you with the name of a place in Tennessee?
She had suggested that Elizabeth could go to a domestic violence shelter, and she provided me the name of the Renewal Shelter.
And the defendant indicated to you that was in Tennessee?
Yes, that was in Tennessee.
During this conversation or any of the conversations you had with the defendant, did she explain to you what 24-hour period it was that she was looking into changing jurisdictions? Did she ever provide you with that date for that 24-hour period?
No.
Did your investigation lead to what that particular 24-hour period was?
No.
During this interview with the defendant at her home, during the search warrant, did she provide you any additional information that we haven't already discussed?
May I refresh my memory?
Sure. If it refreshes your memory, please do.
I don't remember any other part of my testimony where I did state that Tammi Smith informed me that Elizabeth Johnson stated that she was attempting to obtain a new Social Security card and that she was trying to change her identity. Tammi Smith offered that they could help her, but to do it the legal way.
Detective, during this interview with the defendant, did you ask her about specific details of conversations she had with Elizabeth Johnson?
Yes.
Do you recall what the defendant said about providing you those details?
She at times stated that she had difficulty recalling specifics.
Do you recall her telling you she was too tired to remember the details?
Yes.
All right, Detective, let's go ahead and move on finally to January 15th, 2010. What did you do on that date?
I completed a records check on a Deanne and Sam Ayala, which was the information that was provided by Tammi Smith.
And you know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to go right back to January 14th. I forgot to show you the exhibit. Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 26, Detective. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
That is the interview from January 14th, 2010 at her residence.
Your Honor, I move to admit exhibit number 226.
I think we're going to defer consideration of that till we have a chance to look at it a little further. So it's order deferring a ruling on the request to admit exhibit 226.
Detective, when you interviewed Deanne, you were here when she testified that she had made an anonymous phone call, correct?
Yes.
Did you interview her because she had made that anonymous phone call?
I had interviewed her because Tammi Smith had stated that she spoke to Deanne Ayala over scenarios, and so I wanted to verify what was stated, and that's why I spoke to her.
And Detective, if I'm not incorrect, I have about the next time you worked specifically on this case or did anything specifically on this case was January 21st, 2010. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell us what it is that you did on January 21st, 2010?
I received a telephone call from Tammi Smith. She advised me that she was recalling that she had a document in her computer that was of a paperwork that Logan McQueary was supposed to sign going back to the date of December 18th, 2009, when Elizabeth Johnson was to turn the baby over to him. She informed me that she couldn't find the document, but that I should be able to find it since we had her hard drive, of her computer.
Ken, was that the document Detective Bailey testified about earlier?
Yes.
And it's exhibit number 60, which is already in evidence, Your Honor. Permission to publish.
Okay.
When Tammi Smith called you and told you about this document, did she tell you who typed it?
I asked her if she had typed the document, and what Tammi stated directly, which I put in quotes in my report, was, "That's the funny thing, if she had a computer, why couldn't she type it?" And she did.
And so is this the document, exhibit number 60, that she told you about?
Yes.
Can you go ahead and read it into the record for us?
Sure. Date Saturday, December 20th, 2009. Logan Scott McQueary has informed me that Judge Michael McVeigh ordered a visitation for Gabriel Scott Johnson on Saturday, December 20th, 2009, from 8 a.m. until Monday, December 22nd, 2009 at 8 a.m. It was not my understanding that this was an official order, but Logan Scott McQueary told me that he would file something against me in court if I did not have the baby ready for him to take on Saturday at 8 a.m. I want to do the right thing legally, therefore I am surrendering the child for a visit since I do not receive any child support. I am only going to furnish one bottle of formula, one diaper, a couple of diaper wipes, one blanket, and one sleeper. I just can't afford to replace items that are not returned. In return, I expect Logan Scott McQueary to drop Gabriel Scott Johnson off to me on time on Monday, December 22nd at 8 a.m. It says address/phone number where Gabriel Scott Johnson will be sleeping during this visit. And at the bottom, by signing this, we both agree to stick to this agreement for this visit with Gabriel Scott Johnson in order for all of us, especially Gabriel, to feel secure. And it has Elizabeth Joanne, spelled incorrectly, Johnson, Logan Scott McQueary.
Let's move on then to January 22nd, 2010. What did you do on that day?
I arrived at the Estrella jail located in Phoenix for a confrontational phone call between Elizabeth Johnson and Tammi Smith.
Tell us what a confrontation call actually is.
Okay. We often use this in an investigation. It can be a tool. It is when I have a victim call a suspect or an investigative lead to an investigation and confront the person on the allegation of the crime. It needs to be specific as to what the allegation is. I prepare that with the victim. I go over examples that we have to be specific, not to use, like, I give the example on the phone, why did you harm me? Harm me could be physical, it could be emotional harm, it could be sexual harm. And so we review the allegation and then go over specifics that need to be addressed on the phone call. It is recorded and with law enforcement supervision.
Now, Detective, you mentioned this is something that's ordinarily done between a victim and a suspect. What is the purpose of a confrontation call?
It is to find facts of the investigation.
Do you ever do a confrontation call where the facts come out in support of the suspect?
Yes.
And do you ever do confrontation calls where the facts come out in support of the victim?
Yes.
Have you ever done a confrontation call between anybody other than a victim and a suspect?
No.
Are there situations in which a confrontation call can be done between other parties?
Yes.
And I said, have you ever done, with the exception of this case. This case did not involve a confrontation call between a victim and a suspect, correct?
Correct.
So other than this case, have you ever done one with anybody other than a victim and a suspect?
No.
But there are situations in which one can be done.
I'm sorry.
There are situations in which one can be done between other parties.
Yes.
Now, what exactly do you do to assist the person making the confrontation call?
I will go over the report with the victim, go over the allegations, make sure that we're not missing anything. And at times I will role play that just to prepare the victim to make that phone call, because it can be a very difficult phone call for the victim. And I explain that usually I use a piece of paper and I do put keywords that can help them stay focused on the phone call.
In this particular case, you indicated you went to the jail to do the confrontation call. Who was present there while this confrontation call was done?
Angela Andrews from the Maricopa County Attorney's Office was present, as well as Attorney Belle Whitney was present, Elizabeth Johnson, and her two attorneys, but I don't recall their names.
So her attorneys
myself.
were present there as well?
Yes.
And before you began the confrontation call, did you have any conversation with Elizabeth Johnson about what would take place?
Yes, I did.
And you've testified before that you went to Florida and picked up Elizabeth and brought her here and didn't have any conversation with her about the case. What type of interaction did you and Elizabeth Johnson have between Florida and here?
We had very little communication. We had a long flight. We had a layover, but Elizabeth Johnson, she wouldn't speak hardly, and just in terms of general topics. I sat next to her on the plane, and so it was very, very minimal.
So when you arrived at this confrontation call, what was Elizabeth's reaction to you being there?
I was informed that she was willing to participate, which is why I arrived at the jail. And when I arrived there initially, she changed her mind and she stated that she was no longer willing to participate in the confrontational phone call.
Did she tell you at that point why she didn't want to do the confrontation call?
No.
Now, this confrontation call was after Detective Thompson's free talk interview with Elizabeth Johnson?
Yes.
Did you actually listen to that free talk interview prior to the confrontation call?
No.
Did Detective Thompson have a report for you to review prior to this confrontation call? Did you discuss with Detective Thompson what happened in the free talk interview?
Yes.
What was it that you told Elizabeth Johnson, or what conversation did you and Elizabeth Johnson have about the confrontation call prior to it taking place?
Well, this was pretty unique, this phone call, because Elizabeth Johnson was incarcerated at the time. Again, I'd had very minimal contact with her on the plane. She just didn't really open up about general things. So when I arrived, she stated that she wasn't willing to participate. It was very critical that she did participate with hopes that we would have some facts as to where Gabriel's location was. So I really stressed to her what was going on in terms of the investigation. Tammi Smith speaking to the media. I wasn't even quite sure what she was watching off of the news, what Elizabeth Johnson could see, if she was able to watch Nancy Grace, watch KPHO clips. And so I stressed to her that Tammi Smith was speaking to the media, had also called me at one point and stated that possibly I should look into both of her grandparents. And so I presented a pretty big picture that a lot was going on outside of the jail and expressed why she should participate in this confrontational phone call. And really what I was trying to stir up with her is her own inner anger to participate. This would have allowed me to observe Elizabeth Johnson's actions and to see if any factual statements would come out of the phone call.
Now, this pre-confrontation call conversation you had with Elizabeth Johnson, did you record that?
Yes.
Did you record all of your contact with Elizabeth Johnson on this date?
Yes.
And was Elizabeth Johnson ever told that you were attempting to get information that corroborated what she had told Detective Thompson?
Yes.
And at the time you were talking to her about what was being put out there on the media, what was her reaction to those statements?
Well, I spoke to her about what Tammi had presented about her grandparents. And what I recall her stating that her grandfather and Tammi were speaking all the time. She had stated that her grandparents were not involved in Gabriel's missing status. And she started to appear to me as though she was getting a little angry as to what I was presenting to her in terms of the media and the communication that Tammi Smith was having with the media.
Let me ask you this. I believe we've heard testimony already, and if we haven't, we'll clarify it. But are phone calls made from the jail recorded?
Yes, they are.
And do people on the phone, either from the jail or receiving phone calls from the jail, get notified that they're being recorded?
Yes.
How is that? How does that happen?
There's a recording of, well, let me back up. I'm getting confused from Miami-Dade jail tape saying that there's a recording. I'm not quite sure how Maricopa County does the notification.
But in Miami, how was it that you know there was notification in Miami?
In Miami, there is a recording stating that the phone call is recorded.
And so, if you were going to do a confrontation call, do you have any concerns about the person receiving the call believing that it's being recorded?
Yes.
And was there anything that you did in this case to try and make it look like the call was not being recorded?
I had Elizabeth Johnson go through like a third party stating that the connection was going through this third party and the person was no longer on the line, but in hopes that Tammi Smith would not think that the phone call was being recorded.
And what do you mean by going through a third party?
That another friend had assisted in making the phone call.
As though Elizabeth called the friend and then the friend called the defendant?
Correct.
And did you believe that would make it appear that it wasn't being recorded?
I was hoping that that would make it appear.
How would that do that? I mean, how would it make it appear that it wasn't being recorded if you did a third-person phone call?
I can't think from that day who suggested that or why we came up with that.
Does it make sense that phone calls are recorded based on a person's booking number?
Yes.
So we talked a little bit about Elizabeth's reaction to your statements prior to the confrontation call, but what was Elizabeth's overall demeanor at this point in time?
Elizabeth was initially, she was quiet, she was cooperative. As I spoke to her, she had some reaction, but she was quiet and cooperative, I would say.
And at the time that you went in to do this confrontation call, were you there on the side of one person or the other person?
No.
Did you attempt to make Elizabeth believe that you were on her side to some degree?
I did.
And how did you do that?
By speaking out to her that she needed to do this for herself, that she was incarcerated, that Tammi Smith was in a nice home in Scottsdale, probably very relaxed. And so I spoke to her that you're stuck here in this jail, and that's not going to change for you right now. I can't change that. And here's someone who is comfortable. And I really tried to stir her emotions because she didn't have too many emotions as she was listening. But I tried to make her angry in a sense that she needed to do this for herself.
And during the call between Elizabeth and the defendant, did you talk to Elizabeth about anything in particular you wanted her to ask?
I did address specific topics that she needed to discuss. I remember using a piece of paper, going over those topics, explaining to her that she could look at that paper, reminding her that everything is recorded. But this way she could stay focused because at times when I have someone make that phone call, it's very emotional and your emotions can kind of stir you away from the topic. So I did go over specifics with her.
Detective, I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 1. Do you recognize what's contained there in the envelope in exhibit number 1?
Yes.
And what is that?
It's the notes from the confrontational phone call.
With Elizabeth Johnson?
Yes, with Elizabeth Johnson.
And at this time, I move to admit exhibit number 1.
Any objection? Exhibit 1 is admitted.
And permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may.
Detective, what's this number here at the top?
That's the report number.
And when did you put that on?
Before impounding, not at the jail. I didn't write that up there.
If you could tell us, what are we looking at on this page here?
These are just highlights that I wanted her to address during the phone call.
Okay, and the first statement there that says, "I cannot hide this," what was the purpose of that? Oh, I suppose it goes on. "I cannot hide this anymore. I can't cover for you both." And I can't read that last line, if you could tell us what that says.
I think it says, "Because you did."
And what was the purpose behind you writing that down for Elizabeth Johnson?
I wanted to see if I could get any factual statements from Tammi Smith as to telling Elizabeth was telling Tammi Smith that she couldn't cover for the disappearance of Gabriel Johnson any longer.
And the second statement here, what does that say?
Those are your friends you sent for Gabriel.
And what was the purpose of that statement?
There were statements made by Elizabeth Johnson that she thought that it was a possibility that Tammi Smith, Jack Smith, had sent the couple to Texas, and that's who she turned the baby over to.
And the next two statements, can you go ahead and read those?
Sure. I need them to return Gabriel to a church, to anyone. You set this up.
And were those for the same purpose as
Yes.
the statement you just told us about? And how about the next statement there?
You offered to hide me. You did that. And talk about them weak. That was just, again, addressing what her role was in the investigation.
Detective, I'm going to turn the exhibit over. Now, these statements that you just talked about, they have little boxes next to them. What were the boxes?
That's just me. I just like boxes.
Did you write that before the confrontation call?
No.
During the
Oh,
confrontation?
I'm sorry. Yeah, right before the recording of it.
Okay, now these notes on the other side, did you write those before the confrontation call was
Yes.
conducted? You wrote these as well?
Yes.
Okay, and what do they say?
Talk about how she helped you in San Antonio during the week. Talk about her plans. Talk about Craig Cherry. Talk about it. List what she did during the week. She says she talked about jurisdiction only one night. Make her talk about how she talked about jurisdiction.
And Detective, were there any other notes other than what's right here that you used during this confrontation call?
No.
Detective, I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 207. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
And what is that?
It is the recording of the pre-confrontational phone call and the confrontational phone call.
Government, move to admit exhibit number 207.
No objection. Exhibit November 7th is admitted.
Your Honor, this is 28 minutes, and I don't really have any other questions to ask about this subject at this time.
Well, we're not going to start at 28-minute audio now, so I think we're going to take our evening recess, and we'll pick it up tomorrow morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our evening recess. We'll be back tomorrow morning, ready to go at 10:30. Until then, remember the admonition. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
All rise.
Okay, please be seated, everyone. All right, let's make sure we're on the same page about what's going to happen this evening. We have Exhibit 208 out there, the February 2nd interview. I want counsel to communicate, and there needs to be clear communication to me regarding whether there's an objection that relates to statements that Ms. Smith may have made about her attorney, or a Miranda-type objection. And I need to know that so I can resolve it. If there's going to be an objection as to the cumulative nature of the information, then somebody needs to give me a copy or give me a transcript so I know what's in it. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to get a summary from you, and that's not good enough. So if you're anticipating that, I probably need a copy tonight.
Your Honor, for the record, we certainly can provide you a copy, but I will tell the court that she talks at length in detail about Deanna Ayala, which she has never done before, that she talks specifically about Craig Cherry and the apology she gave to him about putting his name on the court document.
Well, if you have a transcript, why don't you give me a transcript? Do we have a copy of a transcript?
I would have to make a copy for Your Honor.
Could you make it before you go? We can make a copy for you now. If you have a clean copy, we'll make a copy for you so I can retain a copy. That way, no matter what happens tomorrow, I will have read it and I'll know what's on it as we talk about admissibility of the interview or portions of that interview. Okay, so in terms of where we stand right now, obviously we're not finished with Detective Ramirez yet. We've got the 28-minute confrontation call that was just admitted, Exhibit 207. How long were you planning on playing, or was it your hope to play Exhibit 208?
Yes, Your Honor, which currently in its current form is 28 minutes as well.
Okay. Beyond that, do we have a whole lot left with Detective Ramirez?
I would say about another half an hour on top of that.
Okay, so then we have cross-examination. I'm not sure if that takes us toward the end of the day, but I do want to be prepared if we end at 3:30 or before that potentially you have at least a witness. We have Jack Smith and then, can't remember the attorney's name?
Ken Shutt, Your Honor.
Ken Shutt. I'd like to have one of those folks on call, at least for the afternoon, so we don't burn a whole lot of time if it goes a little quicker than we think it might.
It's fine, Your Honor. We can have Jack Smith ready.
Okay. All right. And we have an attorney that's been appointed for Mr. Smith.
That's my understanding, Your Honor.
It's Benjamin Taylor, who's going to be here tomorrow and Wednesday as needed, so he should be up to speed. Anything else we need to talk about from the state's perspective before we break for the evening?
No, Your Honor.
Anything from defendant's perspective?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. I'll see you tomorrow morning.